and the right things being, and being in business, and having sort of started my own business previously, and in the business now, one of the things that I do find many sort of small business owners, whether it's been property or whatever, is we get bogged down by being in the business. So all the administrative, all the operational, all the things that we need to do to get the business together, but almost sort of almost pulls us away from what is the money maker, which is actually going out there, and whether it's selling or it's building business and things like that. So how do business people, what are good sort of tactics or tips there for business owners, or anyone really, to work out what is the important bit? Because it seems both of them are as important as each other, because if I don't look after the operational and the back end stuff, how am I going to be able to move forward with the selling or whichever it is that I'm doing?
Yeah, there's a couple of things there. So one is you need to allocate the time to focus on the important stuff. And you touched on before a to-do list. I'm not a big fan of to-do lists. What I'd rather see people do, and this is, again, everyone's different, but what I'd encourage my clients to do is to actually put it into your calendar. So that is, I've got a 2-hour window of things that I'm going to work on for myself, and within that 2 hours I'm going to do these things. So rather than have a separate list or post-it notes or whatever it is around your office, actually put it into your calendar. I call this compartmentalizing your calendar. So that is, I've got time for my work, I've got time for my health and fitness, I've got time for my food, time for my family, and here's my time for my property. And within my property stuff, these are the things that I'm going to do. So I'm allocating time to focus on the important things. The other thing I'd say there as well, Cheryl, around the whole work in your business versus on your business, we're getting into an age now where outsourcing is becoming more and more popular. So it's all around focusing on, so when you want to work on your business, and that is to grow your business, what are the things that are going to propel you forward, right? So it really comes down to two things. In your business is more maintenance. On your business is more growth, directional, strategy, etc. So does that make sense? That's how you could differentiate with the term. If I'm just going to maintain it, well, I'm in my business, I'm in the trenches, I'm serving customers, I'm ordering stock, I'm filling shelves, whatever it is, versus I'm working on my business, and I'm strategizing, and I'm looking down the path as opposed to right here, right now. So they're probably two of the ways that you could differentiate between them. But spend more time on working on your business. I touched on the outsourcing piece as well. There are things that we have to do in business that we're not going to enjoy doing. I have got plenty of property clients who actually outsource part of the deal finding process. So they actually take the parts that they don't like and they hand it over. That might be someone offshore, etc. But there's parts of the deal finding process that they outsource. Why? Because they prefer to do the negotiating. They prefer to do other things as opposed to the whole deal finding or letter writing or whatever it is. So if you can afford to, get it off your plate. When I say afford to, it's a balance of work out how much your time's worth. Yeah, sure, you might be paying $10, $15 an hour for someone who's an offshore resource to do something for you, some of that grunt work. But with that hour that you've got, what can you generate? Or maybe it mightn't be an immediate return as in that hour, but will that hour's time of being productive, not busy, will that take me closer to finding that first deal, which could be that $100,000 deal? So you've just got to sit down and work out all the parts in the process. There'll be things that you like doing that you're good at. There'll be things that you don't like doing that you're not good at. And I'd strongly urge you with the latter to consider outsourcing those.
Yeah, definitely.
If you can.
And I know there are functions in your business that you outsource. There are functions in our business that we outsource as well, whether it's delegate outsourcing. And part of knowing how to outsource is knowing what systems you have in place as well. So it's clear that you sort of go, well, these are the steps that I'm taking. And say, for example, if, what I used to do was outsource, like you said, not so much the letter writing, but finding the names of vendors in a particular area.
Perfect.
So, you sort of instruct a VA, a virtual assistant, to sort of, familiarize themselves with a particular area and say, can you pick out this, this, and this, and this, and then put together a list, you can address it to these vendors. So it's I see where
Mm.
you know what you're talking about there, and I highly recommend that people who are doing sort of deal finding, because you know you think about working out your time, you know. And I remember
Mm.
you know, it was a whether you know we're average, say for an average, we're earning 100 grand a year, whatever it might be, and you break up what the
Mm.
average
Mm.
rate is, work out is
Mm.
that your time better off doing something else, or that
Mm.
administrative task which you can outsource to someone else.
Absolutely, and you've also got to get beyond the thought of, I can't hand that over because no one can do it as
Yeah,
quickly as
yeah,
me, right? And so of course that's the case right now, of course, because you're the one who's doing these tasks, so no one will be able to do it as
yeah,
quickly as you. But you have to take a medium-term view of this and say, well, if I outsource it, you touched on system process. If I record my system, and there's a whole range of efficient ways that you can start to record things nowadays. You can speak into various, dictaphones, and there's an app called Temi, Temi, when you can talk into it, and then for 10 cents a minute, it transcribes it into a Word document. So you could say, hey, my process number one is da 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 da. Step number two is da 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 da. Talk into it. 10 cents a minute. If you've
yeah,
talked for 2 minutes, it's cost you 20
yeah,
cents. Download it into a Word document, and all of a sudden, there you go. But you've got to get beyond the mindset of, no one is going to be able to do this as well as I am. Because, yeah, that's right. In the short term, you're right. But what's the medium term, the long term? And if you've got aspirations to grow your business, then you have to make that decision to hand it over, work with that someone, be patient, because once you've got that person up to speed, you actually want to train them to a point where they're far more efficient than you
yes,
are, so you can go off and
yes,
do the important
yes.
things.
And I joke about it with my colleagues that I actually want to be replaceable. Um,
Yes, perfect, perfect. You want to be, because you want to spend time on strategizing your business, looking at ways to grow your business, and you want to be replaceable because that means that you've got staff who are all doing the right thing
yeah,
for you.
yeah, and I do.
You trust them?
Exactly, exactly. So train them, and the initial part of it might be a bit time consuming, but it's sort of like
Yes, it
short
will be.
term pain as opposed to the long, you know, and the long term.
Long-term
Yeah,
gain. Medium term gain. And again, it's getting over the mindset of, no one's going to be able to do it as well as I am. And I think that's ridiculous, and you've got to get out of your own way for that. The other thing that I wanted to
ooh,
show the people
fine.
who are watching is I've done, I love my
Love it.
drawings,
Oh,
Cheryl. So this one
yes,
here is that we all have 168 hours in any given week. So we all have the same amount of time. And so quite often people will say, well, hey, I've got no time. I've got no time to do this property stuff because I'm busy with my work and I'm busy. Well, okay, so we work for 40 hours a week. We sleep 8 hours a night. That's 56 hours. We've got 45 hours of, 48 that should be. So 42 hours of miscellaneous stuff. That's 6 hours a day of stuff that could be driving, eating, exercising, downtime,
mm,
etc. That leaves you with 30 hours in your week. Now, when people say to me, hey, Tony, I've got no time, then that's the piece there around, let's do the audit and let's challenge you, because I'm telling you, you've got no time. Now, people say, oh, Tony, but I work 50 hours a week, or I spend more time driving. Well, that's okay. Maybe that 30 hours a week is instead 20 hours a week or 15 hours a week. But if you think about, you've got 15 hours a week to work on your side hustle, that's an enormous amount of time that you can start to shift your life forward. But the problem is that people will spend the 15 hours a week doing those fun things as opposed to doing the stuff that takes their business forward. And we talked last week around what is it that you want? So that is your
yeah,
goals. So the thing to think about tonight is, what are you prepared to sacrifice? And by sacrifice, I mean, what are you prepared to let go of in order to create 15, 20, 30 hours in your week? Are you prepared to let go of, time with family and friends, TV watching, social media enjoyment, maybe some
mm,
sleep? Maybe you go back to 7 hours, etc. You've got to be able to sacrifice. And if I could just share my story, back when I first started my journey, I used to get up at 4 o'clock every day, and I did that for 18
yeah,
months. 4 o'clock every single
yeah,
day, right? And I did that because I needed to fit that in, because I had a full-time job. It was a demanding job that I traveled around the countryside. And so I needed to be able to squeeze that first 2 hours in my day working on my businesses. And I had initially started with the one business being the property development side of things. And so what was I doing at 4 a.m.? I was sending out emails to various agents. I was doing feasibilities on different, properties that came across my desk. There was plenty that I could be doing at 4 a.m. And then when I started to get to the coaching side, there was a whole range of stuff that I was doing in that regard as well, writing programs, looking to, lead generation, etc. So, you've got to start to sacrifice. And that was my sacrifice. And I'm not suggesting that everyone needs to get up at 4 a.m. But what I am suggesting is that you can't expect to do the same thing and get a different outcome, because that's called the definition of insanity. So you need to be able to make changes. What are you prepared to sacrifice in order to get where you want to go? We all want $1 million, for example, right? But it's what are you prepared to let go of to get the $1 million? We all want six-pack abs, but are you prepared to do the sit-ups to get there? In fact, the US Marines have a saying, which is everyone wants to go to heaven, but no one wants to die. So we all want the glory of, but no one wants to die going to it. So no one wants to do the sit-ups to get the six-pack abs. No one wants to do the hard work to get the $1 million, etc. So you've got to challenge yourself on what are the things that I can let go of. When you start to let go of those, then all of a sudden you get all this time. And then it's with that time, then you need to, so the first thing is to create the quantity. So that is, I've created the quantity of time. The next thing is the quality. So that is, am I spending my time working on the things that are productive, that are taking me closer to my goal, or am I just being busy for busy's sake? Does that make sense? So create the quantity, get the amount of time, now really challenge yourself on the quality of that time. And I'll give you one other example just to paint the picture. If we were to send a rocket from the Earth to the moon, and that rocket was off target by 1%, 1% off target, it would miss the moon. By the time it got in near the moon, it would miss the moon by 6,709 kilometers. So my point to that is that when you think about busy versus productive, you can be busy, but if you're off target by just 1%, then you're not heading towards your goal. So you've really got to challenge yourself and realign and ensure that you're being productive.
And you talk about, waking up at 4 a.m. every morning, and it's not
I used to. I don't anymore, but I used to. I get up at 5. I have a sleep in now. I get up at 5.
I'm up with you at 5. And that's because I know I need that time, one, for myself without screaming children. And I tell my children, if you come in and I'm meditating, don't speak. I need time to be able to prep myself, to be able to focus and concentrate. But discipline is definitely like, if you're wanting to be able to have that compartmentalization of your time, having a disciplined and focused approach to it is really important. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect in any way, but I do realize when I'm not disciplined in getting up at a certain time, I realize I don't get as much done as I need to be, And
correct. And let's be brutally honest, right? The easy part in all this, when I talk about compartmentalizing your diary, your calendar, the easy part is putting it into the calendar. The hard part is the bit that you just talked about, which is the discipline to go, hey, it's 2 o'clock, or hey, it's 5 o'clock. I need to be doing some stuff for myself now, and not doing it, right? That's the discipline. And you think about it, it happens all the time. So for example, if you're at your job and your boss calls a meeting and the meeting is at 3 o'clock, you will make sure that you're punctual, you're ready to go, come 3 o'clock, etc. But when we go and set meetings with ourselves, we go, it'll be right. It's just myself. I just, but what you're doing, right? So the message that you're telling yourself, you may not necessarily be consciously thinking this, but the message you're saying to yourself is, I'm not worth it. I'm not worth it. You hit the snooze button. I'm not worth it. My dreams aren't worth it. My goals aren't worth it. You do all these little things, right? These little things are around the fact that you aren't disciplined to have a meeting with yourself. You keep hitting the snooze button. You keep putting things off. And what you're doing is you're just adding all these layers on top that it's like, well, I'm not worth it. My goal isn't worth it. And maybe it's not worth it. And that you've got to ask or answer that question, right? But it's all about the easy bit's putting it into the calendar. And I'm not saying that's easy, but the easier bit is putting it into the calendar. The hard bit is then going, when the alarm goes off, get out of bed. When you've got a meeting with yourself, you have a meeting with yourself.
And